So a Kennedy, famous for fighting big pharma and questioning vaccines, just got handed the keys to America's health system. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. confirmed as Secretary of Health and Human Services on February 13th, 2025. But here's the insane part. This isn't just about vaccine shots or pharma pills. RFK Jr. is about to drop a bombshell on the farming industry, specifically regenerative farmers who are out here just healing the soil of America one seasonal cover crop at a time. This could be the big break that regenerative farmers have been waiting for. Or it could also be a disaster. So we're talking about things like less pesticides and more funding for small farmers. Not to mention some policies that could make a lot of people angry, especially industrial farmers. We're going to unpack it all, and trust me, if you buy or consume food in America, this will affect you one way or another. Hey, I'm Kyle, and welcome to Advent Fresh Market. This channel is about regenerative farming, and we are on a journey to figure out how Christmas trees, chestnut trees, beef, and poultry can all be grown and cultivated together right here in Ohio to ensure a resilient landscape for future generations. But today, our story begins in Washington with current events that could turbocharge regenerative farming nationwide. So let's talk about RFK Jr. So he was nominated by President Donald Trump back in November of 2024. And then after months of debate, the Senate finally said last week or so, it was, I think, 52 to 48. And so it was close, and no Democrats went for it. Only one Republican, Mitch McConnell, broke ranks and voted no. Now RFK Jr. is running the biggest department in the government, and we're talking a literal $1 trillion budget with 80,000 employees and control of heavy hitters like the FDA and the CDC. So there's some serious power in this position, and you might know him for his environmental activism or his, we'll call it spicy takes on vaccines. But today I want to specifically zero in on something else entirely, which is his obsession with shaking up our food system. And that's where regenerative farmers really come into play. So I want to focus on regenerative farmers and how this applies to RFK Jr.'s new role. But before we do that, let's rewind for a second and talk about what regenerative farming even is so that we can define that for anyone who may not know. Most farming today is about maxing out yields. So you want to pump the soil with synthetic pesticides, fertilizers, or whatever it takes to turn out crops fast. And it works. It's kind of like borrowing against the future, where the soil becomes completely wrecked, ecosystems suffer, and we're left with food that's depleted of nutrients and laced with a very concerning amount of toxic chemicals. So regenerative farming, on the other hand, is about restoring soil health first and foremost. And we do that with things like cover crops and composting and minimal tilling and soil disruption, completely ditching harsh chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, etc. And it's farming that builds a self-sustaining, diverse ecosystem, which in turn produces food that actually contains nutrients. And that's really the goal with regenerative farming. And this has been picking up a lot of steam recently. So big players like PepsiCo and Walmart threw $120 million into regenerative projects back in 2023. And so you also have companies like ADM who have programs to get farmers on board as well. And so it's not really a fringe thing anymore. It's kind of going more mainstream as more and more people talk about it. So here's the thing. Regenerative farmers are fighting an uphill battle against a system that's built for industrial agriculture. So as RFK Jr. steps into his role, talking about sustainable food and regularly throwing around the word regenerative, it ends up being a big deal because these are words that were not talked about before. So many people, in fact, most people don't know what regenerative is, even though it was the predominant method of farming pre-World War II. It's a spotlight that regenerative farmers, including myself, have been waiting for. So let's get into RFK Jr.'s game plan. He's been shouting from the rooftops about how broken our food system is. Again, pesticides everywhere, ultra-processed junk food has been clogging our store shelves, and big corporations are now calling the shots. So he said, and I love this quote, he said, "We will restore the USDA and the EPA to their proper role of protecting health and the environment. Today, corporate influence has compromised these agencies, and we've got toxic chemicals in our food, soil, air, and water. It's time to clean it up." And during his confirmation, he also said, and I quote again, I'm going to use every mechanism I can to incentivize regenerative agriculture, which farmers want to do. No farmer wants to be stuck producing fiber we pretend is a meal.
I have a lot of plans for ending the corporate control over our food supply. It's poisoning the food. The food that they produce is not even food anymore, it's commodities.
But wait a minute, RFK Jr. is running the Health and Human Services, not the Department of Agriculture. The USDA is the one that usually handles farming policy, so how's he going to pull this off exactly? Well, he's already said that he's going to team up with the Agriculture Secretary nominee, Brooke Rowlands, to pull this all together. So it's looking like it's going to be a tag team move. HHS sets the health and goals there, and then the USDA kind of brings the farming muscle to it. So it's not direct control, but it is influence, and for regenerative farmers, that could mean some serious wins. Okay, so let's break down some possibilities here. Number one is pesticides. RFK Jr. clearly hates them. He calls them a health crisis waiting to happen. He wants stricter regulations, maybe even bans, and so regenerative farmers are already ahead of the curve in that regard because they just simply don't use that stuff. So if he cracks down, their chemical-free crops could stand out in a crowded market, which is a huge competitive edge. And then number two is funding and research. So imagine the National Institute of Health, which is part of HHS, running studies showing that regenerative food is more nutritious compared to other alternatives. And so that's, not just science, that's kind of a marketing goldmine, especially when you're talking about small farmers that don't have marketing budgets to begin with, especially when you compare that to conglomerates like PepsiCo. So you have more demand, more growth, and if he funnels cash to help conventional farmers switch to regenerative methods, then that's also another lifeline for small-time farmers. Number three is public health campaigns. RFK Jr. really wants us to eat healthy, and so he will likely influence school programs and diet guidelines. So this could all hype up whole foods instead of pizza and French fries when it comes to, for example, school lunch programs. And I know that as a millennial, I went to public school, and I remember that my high school lunch consisted almost entirely of square pizza and French fries, which is what I ate every single day. And then pre-high school lunch, I know wasn't any better. So I don't know how I'm still alive. But anyways, it's not really about growing crops, or it's not just about growing the crops that we need. It's about getting them onto our plates. And if he pulls this off with the USDA, we might see subsidies and grants flowing to these farmers. And I don't really know how that side of the process works very well, but I know that's typically what the government does, for better or for worse. I know there's some pushback on that as well. Which takes me to my next point, which is he could go too hard with things and overregulate everything and accidentally bury farmers, even the regenerative ones, under a mountain of red tape and costs. And then there's also pushback. So Big Ag isn't going to go quietly with this. They have deep pockets. They have decades of clout, about, I think, 80 years of farming policy under their belt, and they're not afraid to use it. Many conventional farmers do not think highly of regenerative practices and will almost certainly push back against that too. So you're talking about, legal battles, political gridlock, and a lot of these things compile and could stall the whole thing. So there's obviously a lot of unknowns, especially when it comes to how exactly he intends to execute these plans. And if you look at what happened in Sri Lanka not too long ago, they banned chemical fertilizers cold turkey, and it was kind of a disaster. I know the yields crashed, food prices spiked, people went hungry, and if RFK pushes his policies or his plans too fast without a lot of foresight, could we see similar chaos happen here in America? I mean, it's a tightrope to walk, but that is the nature of politics. Okay, so let's zoom out and piece this all together. Right now, you have American agriculture that consists almost entirely of pesticide-heavy industrial practices that are ugly, and according to RFK Jr., and quite frankly, many others, this is poisoning our nutrient-depleted food. And so our new Secretary of Health and Human Services wants to flip that and cut out the toxins and fund the good stuff, make sustainable food the main focus. So for regenerative farmers, that seems like good news. Less competition from chemical-laden crop manufacturers and more resources to scale up, especially in a market that actually wants what they're selling. But he has to sync up with the USDA and dodge all those political landmines that we were talking about. And so you want him to keep the overregulation monsters in check, essentially. And if he nails it, this could be the moment that regenerative farming goes from kind of niche to more normalized. And if he flops, of course, then, it's a missed shot at fixing a system that's been broken for way too long. So what do you think? Will RFK Jr. make some real change here, or will it all just be another nothing burger? Also, where does the food in your pantry come from? And what is stopping you from buying food directly from local farmers in your area? Is it convenience? Is it cost? Drop your answers in the comments below. I read them all, I promise, and I really am interested in hearing what your answers are. And if you're into regenerative farming, especially Christmas trees and chestnuts, poultry and beef, then hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out. I'm Kyle, and thank you for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.